Steve, thanks for taking time out to talk with us about the art of fearlessly doing business. Tell us who you are and what your business is.
My name's Steve Kraus. I own Press Coffee Roasters, and I'm also founder of Press Coffee Food and Wine that's located in Sky Harbor.
Tell us a little bit about why you started your business.
I started my business with the idea of being able to control my destiny. I was in sales for 16 years and felt like it was the same old, and wasn't able to control what I wanted to do going forward in life. So I had a vision of what I wanted to do, but wasn't 100% sure of it. But after nights and nights of going back and forth with my wife, we decided to start in the coffee industry instead of going with the franchise. So in 2008, we started Press Coffee Food and Wine at City North, and it's been a giant adventure since then.
So what was the first big fear that you had to overcome to get started?
My first biggest fear was getting the funding necessary to start my business. That was my biggest fear, whether or not we could get that done. We went down several paths, friends and family, banks, and then we finally went towards the SBA. And the SBA was pretty helpful in the idea of us starting our own business, but they were also very difficult to deal with because it was a considered restaurant, and the restaurant failure rate is relatively high. It always has been. But we got past that, and we were able to get funding for the project, and it was actually funded shortly after construction started, so it was even a bigger fear of not even able to get that money to move forward.
So once you got started and things were rolling along, what was the first big bump that you came upon and how'd you get through it?
Well, for me, the biggest bump was the recession hit, and it caused a giant economic impact across the board. People stopped buying the way they were buying. Their habits changed. The center that I was involved with lost its largest tenant. It was Nordstrom's at the time, and so because of that, the center and location that I was at lacked the traffic necessary to help my business grow continually. That was the biggest hurdle we had up front. And so if you look at that and you say, well, if I don't have the traffic and I don't have the location that's working, then the next fear is how much money is it going to take for me to keep my business alive? How much money is it going to take for me to continue to pay my employees on time? There were so many different fears that fell into that, but we were able to manage through it.
So what's the thing that keeps you up at night now? What's your biggest fear currently?
I would say the thing that keeps me up at night, it was not so much fear as it is how do we make the right steps to grow the business bigger. And that could be placed in with fear. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a fear as it is the idea of making a decision and it fails. But I'll be the first one to tell you that the only way I think that most people become successful is failing at certain points and making bad decisions, so that next time that decision comes into play, you're able to make the proper decision and not fear going into that scenario.
This is kind of a good segue into the last question. What have you learned about being fearless?
What have I learned about being fearless? Well, the biggest part for me about being fearless now is not to put any stringencies on spending money when it's necessary to grow your business. In the beginning, you have a box of money that you know you have to have so that everything gets paid. And then once you grow the business big enough, now you've got this little nest egg and it feels really comfortable to have. But then you have to spend it into the company, because if you don't, the company will never grow. It will just stay stagnant. And while I find that that can be good for some people, for me, you won't move forward in your company unless you reinvest your time, your effort, and your money into that. So I fear now sometimes that I'm not making the decisions that will grow my business, and that's a natural feeling. I fear sometimes that I'll lose key employees. That would probably be the bigger fear for me if I really put it together, is losing key employees that you know you've invested time and effort in to making them successful in your company. I would say that's probably one of the biggest areas that I'm fearful in.
So what do you do when you're up late at night and you're kind of concerned about one of those things? What's your biggest tool in dealing with fearlessness?
I would say for me, the tools that I use are probably, they're right at your fingertips now, which is great. I don't have to go to a library. And yes, I'm old school, but now that we have that, I'll look up information that will give me key points to making that employee more successful, making that employee happier. Unfortunately, sometimes money is usually what is the driving factor in that situation. So you have to figure out whether or not is it worth spending more money to keep that employee. Are there other alternatives? Are there driving forces that that are going to push them out regardless? So is it even worth your time? I use those tools, and then the other tools I use is I work with my peers, people that are already in the industry, people that have faced these problems already. Networking with a group of people is inevitably priceless because it's easier to talk to somebody one-on-one, using them one-on-one. And if it's an email at 1 o'clock in the morning, it's an email at 1 o'clock in the morning, but it's important that I get it out. But it does keep me up. Those are important things that you want to make sure that if your business is going to continue to grow, your employees are happy as well.
Well, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing you at the Art of Fearlessly Doing Business opening on May 14th at the Walter Gallery.
I do too. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.